Welcome to Leatherbrains, the podcast for fantasy football. Now, introducing your host, Hunter Slapdog Amaruso, and Matthew Scotty Holtmeyer.
Going on, everybody, and welcome to Leatherbrains. Your host here, Slapdog, and I am joined here today by Alan Casanova Castro and Scotty Holtmeyer. Gentlemen, congratulations to the both of you. Super Bowl champs, Chiefs, baby. You guys
played so hard. We played
are
so
Super
hard.
Bowl champs. You and Scotty, I saw you guys Sunday night out there killing it. Chiefs couldn't have done without you. Congratulations to the both of you. I'm happy for you guys.
Yeah, I will say that it's probably a toss-up between how many calories I took in with Busch Light and how many calories I released with just sitting there sweating my ass off, nervous the entire game.
I can understand that. I unfortunately do not live close enough to you guys, so we could all be watching the game together. But you guys were together, so. Today we're gonna have a very off the script conversation. This is not something typically when we do the show. We have a ton of notes. We got a little bit, but nothing too crazy. I want to pick your guys' brain. I'm not a Chiefs fan. We all know that. You guys are Chiefs fans. Let's talk about the Super Bowl. That's what we're gonna do today. It's gonna be an off the script conversation. Nothing too crazy. Probably get out of here a little bit earlier than usual. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Super Bowl. So very obviously the Chiefs win this. We know that. Chiefs win this game at the very end, and I think it was 37-34. Alan, I'll start with you because we did not have the Chiefs winning this game. Scotty had the Chiefs winning. Scotty was the only Leatherbrains team member that had the Chiefs winning this game. The world did not have the Chiefs winning this game. Eagles going into halftime, we're in the lead. So I'm going to start out with this because I do have a question for you. Alan, you bet $200 on the Chiefs Bengals. You bet $200 on the Bengals. Okay.
Don't
Chiefs
say
win.
this too loud.
Chiefs win. Yeah, no. Well, and this is really and hopefully your wife can't hear me. And then you bet $200 against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl here, so that the Eagles would fly, and you would make some money. Here. Do you feel as if your financial contribution is the only reason the Chiefs have continued to win? And do you think you need to continue this trend moving into next season for every game and the Chiefs will have an undefeated year?
No, I can't afford that, number one. That's not sustainable for me right now.
For 1 year it is. You can afford it for 1 year.
So I basically put God in a pickle. I was like, you're either going to finally let me win some bets or the Chiefs are going to win a Super Bowl. And he picked the Chiefs Super Bowl, which is fine. It's fine.
It was a good choice, honestly.
$400 out the door, but whatever. I think it was worth it. This was such a crazy run in one of the more unlikely years, I think, for the Chiefs, considering everything they faced in the preseason or in the offseason, losing Tyreek, the AFC West reloading, rebuilding. You got the Bills were good, the Bengals being good. And, I didn't put much stock in the Chiefs actually making the Super Bowl, number one. Like, I was like, if they make it, that's unreal. And then to actually win it, given the team being in flux, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Well, and you said it best earlier in the season that the Chiefs are essentially in a soft rebuild right now. I mean, they've got Travis Kelce, obviously, they've got Patrick Mahomes, but they have no other offensive weapons out there. They basically put together this tic-tac team of just random guys from different teams and threw them all on the field and just kind of hoped it would work out as they build. And it worked out great. Couldn't have worked out any better. And so I think it's honestly, stepping aside, even as a Chiefs fan, it's just extremely impressive to see what Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes have been able to accomplish this season. It surpassed all of our expectations, definitely.
Well, I think
so. Well worth it.
I'm glad to hear. I also had you put some money on there for me. I was a little bit more sad just because I wanted some financial compensation out of this and didn't get it. So, and I don't care who won the game. I just wanted some money.
Yeah, but I hope you learned your lesson. Betting against Patrick Mahomes, man.
Here's the thing.
It's a tough ride.
Here's my thing. Mahomes, as we know, he's the first quarterback to win the Super Bowl and finish the season as the league's passing leader. So I woke up this morning. I went to bed a little sad. not, you know, I was not like, I wasn't actively rooting for the Eagles. I had money on them. So I want, you know, for my own degen reasons, I wanted to win. But so I went to bed a little sad. And I woke up this morning and I thought to myself, okay, he's the league MVP. Mahomes is the league MVP. He is the Super Bowl MVP. I will not make this mistake again. And I think this was, you know, realistically, and we're going to joke around a lot, but I think regardless of who you root for, what you got going on in any NFL situation whatsoever, you cannot discredit Patrick Mahomes, period. And Scotty, you said it in our Super Bowl article that you had written. And it's 100% true. Like, you look at this moment in this game, really not even in this game, but this entire playoff run leading up to the Super Bowl and then winning the Super Bowl, made me learn my lesson here, that no matter what, you can't write off Patrick Mahomes, period. And you want to talk about, you know, putting him in a Brady type conversation, those are going to be had. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL right now, period. There is absolutely no one else that can do what he can do. Because like you just mentioned, Scotty, the Chiefs have nothing offensively. Realistically, they don't. And you have Travis Kelce. You have Juju Smith-Schuster. You got MVS. But you look at this offense, and on paper, the Eagles are still the better team, period. The Eagles on paper are still the better team.
So are the Bengals. And we thought the Jags were going to be very competitive.
Yeah, I mean, all these other teams, they were, but they don't have Patrick Mahomes.
No,
and I think that is the difference maker on any of these teams. He's doing more with less, and I'm that's coming from somebody who is not a Chiefs fan, although I guess I am wearing red. He's doing more with less, and so you have people out there that are saying he doesn't deserve the MVP. He's not. You know, have you been watching football? Because he is the reason the Chiefs. If you take any other quarterback and put him put that quarterback in the Chiefs quarterback room in place of Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs do not win this game.
That's make it to this game.
No, probably not. So he's undoubtedly the MVP in my mind. He is the best quarterback in the NFL, and he will be for a very long time.
Yeah. With that being said, was he the better quarterback in this game?
Oh, Jalen Hurts played a hell of a game.
If you take away that fumble, which was just very costly, obviously, like you just gave the Chiefs 7 points. That kept the Chiefs in the game. That play where he fumbled it, that could have taken the win right out of the sails, because then it would have been 24-7 going into halftime. That's not going to happen now. Now you have a big lead. So like, he literally made the one big fatal mistake for his team, I think, that really kept the Chiefs in it and then kept them believing. And then you had the snowball of the second half. If you take that play away, though, I'm not so sure he wasn't the best player on either side in this Super Bowl.
Well, and their game plan worked perfectly. I mean, they kept the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. You know, the stats going around that the Chiefs had the ball for 24 minutes or something like that. And granted, you have to subtract a drive because they gave them a touchdown. But still, I mean, they kept the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands for the entire first half. You saw the effect that it had on the Chiefs, where they just weren't able to get really anything going until the fumble. You know, they played the game plan well. They played a really good game. Honestly, I have the utmost respect for this Eagles organization because they are the real deal this year. And I think, you know, going forward for them is a little bit more of a question mark with their entire coaching staff leaving pretty much. You know, obviously they have Jalen Hurts. They have a lot of key players leaving, but they also have some draft capital that they'll be able to use. So they're a little bit more of a question mark going forward, but I think they're going to be relevant for a long time, especially with that man at quarterback.
See, here's the problem. They have about 20 players that are going to become free agents. And so that's really where, and you also have to pay Jalen this year. So that is where you really start to get down into the weeds of things. This was the year for the Eagles to do it. Not only that, but a lot of their staff is probably not going to be around next year because they're going to, you know, their defensive coordinator is on the Cardinals' radar. Their offensive coordinator probably won't be around. So the Eagles could look a lot different next year from a personnel standpoint. You talk about, as Jalen Hurts the better quarterback in this game. He played a damn near perfect game. Aside from that fumble, What did he do that was wrong? I mean, he played incredibly. Jalen Hurts is a talented quarterback. This Eagles team deserved to be there in the Super Bowl. No doubt in my mind. But I will tell you right now, the Eagles lost this game not because of the Eagles offense, but because the Eagles defense failed in almost every single aspect.
That's
all the hype.
That second half, you know, the Chiefs had the ball 4 times in the second half. Touchdown, 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 game-winning field goal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how, and you don't get like hardly any pressure on Mahomes. And we can get into like the turf, which was a fucking nightmare for everybody.
I agree.
Like, I think that slowed down both sides because I don't think it's any coincidence that neither side got any sacks. Like, maybe Jalen could dodge more, and I think the Chiefs put more. I think the Chiefs put more pressure on Jalen than the Eagles put on Pat on the same. Like, so there's some things to be hashed out there, but that is probably the most interesting part to me. I thought for sure Pat would be sacked at least 3 times, maybe more.
He should have.
Like, there's no reason they got 0 sacks and did nothing on defense.
Hats off to the Chiefs offensive line because they played a hell of a game. But the turf definitely, I think, could play. There's an argument to be made there. This was a brand new turf.
Which is so stupid.
It's so stupid. I agree.
Like, why? Like, even if it worked out beautifully, like, why are you testing brand new turf in the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing that?
This is the argument I have. I don't know if you guys watch college basketball, but like, I watch a lot of college basketball too. And in college basketball, you play the whole season in these gyms, right? You're in these gyms. And at the very end, they're like, let's play in a football stadium. That would be fun. You're like, this is not even the fucking same anymore.
Right.
So that's what it like equated to me. You're like, you get to the biggest stage and like everybody wants to like showcase new things like leading into the next year. And you're like, these guys just sweated out a whole season. And now you want to like switch shit up on them and like make them think about other stuff. I think this game, as many points were scored, I think the field, directly resulted in a lot of that because defense couldn't get pressure. People were getting open. People were slipping. Like, it just created a lot more.
And they even showed a pile of cleats that the Eagles had swapped out because they switched cleats. A lot of the players did. So on the sidelines, there's a pile of cleats because they all swapped into different cleats. Very problematic. And I could not believe that the NFL had done this. But regardless, you got to give it the kudos to the Chiefs offensive line, period, because they did a wonderful job. In the narrative going into this game, we knew Patrick Mahomes had a high ankle sprain. Was he playing at 100%? Absolutely not. Did he look like he was somewhat healthy in the first half? Yeah. He took one hit. You could very clearly see he was in pain. I don't know what drugs they gave him at halftime. I want him piss tested.
It's called Super Bowl adrenaline.
It has like there was something going on there. Put him on our ballot next year for played like he was on drugs because there was some good drugs flowing through his veins in the second half. He looked like he was perfectly fine. That 26-yard scramble looked fine. He looked fine. The Eagles defense, but we talk about the second half. The first half, the Eagles defense got to chill on the sideline for the majority of the game. And I think that needs to be noted. The Chiefs defense was not playing in the first half very much because the Eagles offense had the ball for really the entire first half.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important for us to mention, we said, and I agree with you, the Eagles deserve to be in this game. They're definitely the best team in their conference, especially with San Francisco having all the quarterback issues. But their defense is overrated, and they're overrated because of the lack of firepower on the offenses that they played all season long. I mentioned it the last episode, and I mentioned it in the preview article, but the best offense that the Eagles played all year was the Dallas Cowboys with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott threw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns on them in that game, and you saw it showcased in the Super Bowl where you had receivers not only making touchdown catches, but they're wide open. You have nobody within 5 to 10 yards of these receivers. And I do think the Eagles defense was overrated just a little bit. And especially their defensive line. I mean, they led the league in sacks this year and got no pressure. And I think you're right. You can attribute a lot of that to the field, but also the Chiefs have one of the best offensive lines in the game. Patrick Mahomes had one of the best attempt to sack ratios of any quarterbacks in the league. I think the only quarterback with a better one was Tom Brady, who, as we know, is the checkdown king. So people underestimated the Chiefs offensive line and they overestimated the Eagles defense.
I still think the Eagles had a good defense. I don't want to take anything away from them. Yeah, maybe their opponents were not as formidable, but they have a good defense. I think one of the things I think what we struggle to see, and I was talking to a family member about this today. They had no pressure on Patrick Mahomes, right? And I think a lot of the time throughout the season, they relied on their front four because they have been so dominant for blitz packages. They didn't need to run any blitz packages because they were getting pressure with their front four. You didn't see them blitz a whole heck of a lot throughout the entire game. And so kudos to the Chiefs offense or offensive line, excuse me, because they did a phenomenal job. They kept the Chiefs in this game. I think we'd be having a much different conversation if they did not come and play 100%.
Well, and you're right. They didn't blitz a lot, which doesn't make any sense. You're playing against the best quarterback in the league right now. Why are you not doing everything you can to pressure him, especially considering the lack of receiving options? What do you think you have to double cover Juju and MVS? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. You have to expect that defense to bring a lot more pressure from the linebacker and quarterback position, just the secondary generally, to force Mahomes out of the pocket and force him to make those throws. Because you're giving him all day to throw, he's going to tear you up. He's going to tear up any defense.
I think I know I said this like before the playoffs even started. Like generally before the playoffs start, you have all these wild scenarios and storylines. You're like, this team can do it. The Bills can do it. The Bengals, this team will win. Maybe the Eagles will lose here. The Eagles might go all the way. And what ends up happening or what ends up rising to the top is you get to the end and you're like, well, no fucking kidding. You're like Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts or Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes. And then you get to the end, you're like, well, of course it was Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes at the very end, right? Like, you're like, I don't know why I was thinking any different. And I think in this game, what's highlighted, and especially when you look at that defense, was the lack of adjustments that they were willing to make, even in game. They came in with a game plan thinking, this is what got us here. We're running with it. We'll pressure with 4, maybe 5. We'll drop back and we'll do our best. And you could tell it wasn't working early on. And like, there was just no adjustments made. Even on you flip the ball to the other side, like they just didn't make any adjustments in that second half. You just saw a coaching staff kind of lean on them and take over, and the other staff was like, "Oh, we don't know what the fuck to do." Like, we're like, this worked all year. This formula should work now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I think that the Eagles' offense in the second half was not playing like clicking on all cylinders. I think Jalen Hurts is the reason that offense was successful.
Well, you say that, but also they also have two of the best. They probably have the best, if not, I mean, they're at least top 3 wide receiver duos in the league. With Smith and Brown, those guys are just absolutely beastly. And I think I might choose them over any wide receiver duo on any other team. Maybe Jamar. Yeah, Tyreek and Waddle, Jamar T. Higgins, but
I'd put them top 5. I don't know if I'd put them.
This is a good argument. I want to see this. Hold on. I want to
Debo and Kittle.
I don't know. Maybe I'm looking.
I'd put Waddle and Hill above that. No. I'd put Chase and Higgins above that.
I think they're all in the same conversation.
What's that?
Metcalf and Lockett.
I don't think Metcalf and Lockett are up there.
I think Smith and Brown are better than that. I'm trying to think of other ones.
Waddle, Hill, Devontae Adams, Renfro.
No.
Nope.
Evans, Godwin.
Not anymore. Maybe like 3 years ago, maybe.
With all their working limbs.
Maybe they're higher up than I think. I guess I don't put a lot of stock in Devonta, and that's probably my bad. But like,
he was wide receiver 9 on the year for fantasy.
He's been killing it. He had almost 100, or he had over 100 receiving yards in this game. Granted, one of his catches wasn't really a catch, but
weren't they the only team with 2 top 10 wide receivers?
Maybe,
because AJ Brown was up there and Devonta was 9. I think they're the only team, so I think Scotty might be right just on an aggregate.
Yeah, gross. Good verbiage, though. Okay. So, I do want to ask this question. Travis Kelce. He is not fast. He is not swift. He is not.
He's faster than you think.
Perhaps. But he's not.
He's a strider. He's not like a choppy guy. He's a strider.
That's what I don't understand. And I said this earlier today, and I'm sitting there thinking, and I'm like, how in the hell is Travis Kelce open? Because he's not that fast. He's not like incredibly big for a tight end. He just always finds himself open, and I don't understand how.
I think mostly over the last 5 years, it's just been the fact that he and Mahomes are on the same page. If you go back and look at the play where he scored the touchdown, that fade to the corner, what you saw is Travis Kelce running a completely different route, and then he noticed the space at the same exact time that Mahomes noticed the space. And before Kelce even broke into that adjusted route, Mahomes was throwing the ball. So they're on the same page. They see the same things. They see the holes in the defense the same way. And their connection is what makes Travis Kelce so amazing. Obviously, he's very talented in his own right, but that's what has sparked him to that next level where they just, they're thinking the same way. They're on the same page. They see the same holes and they hit it at the same time. So those guys are a duo for the ages.
And if you ask Travis, which people have, like, how do you get open? Because they want to know. Everybody's like, how are you doing this? To like what Hunter's saying is like, how does this even happen? Like, and I know Yeti says it. I've heard him say it in text. Like, how come people just don't double him? And I think people try, but you have to remember
a lot of a touchdown.
Yeah, well, and a lot of what happens is exactly that. Andy Reid's not stupid. He'll use Kelce and put him in different situations. I think that first drive was just the Eagles thinking they could play straight up. I think the Eagles thought, we'll just go straight up across the board. We'll make it work. But even Travis says, like, him being a former quarterback and understanding that position and where Pat's reads are. There's also one of the plays where it was like a quick out to Juju, and I'll send it to the video to you guys. But Travis is actually in the middle of the field, like pointing over to his left, saying like, Juju's open over there. He's literally telling Pat, throw it to that guy on the other side, and Pat slings it over there. So it's like, there's a lot that goes in that's nonverbal for them, but I think it's just familiarity, and they just know each other so well. Like, it's hard to replicate.
It's frustrating as somebody who doesn't have that on his team at all. I don't even have a very great quarterback. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating, but you have to admire it for what it is. It's impressive. Kelce Bull at the end of this game, Jason Kelce said to his brother Travis, "Fuck you. Congratulations." I have a brother, and this is exactly how we would treat each other. Yeah. You're pissed off. And I loved it. I love the fact that he said that, because no matter what, someone's got to lose here. And that is something, it would be very hard, right? Because you very clearly want to win, but a small party is also happy because you both made it that far.
Well, and I think it's helpful too that both of them have won a Super Bowl already. Yeah. So because you imagine if you guys are both playing for your first Super Bowl, you never know if this is going to happen again. I think people underestimate how difficult it would be to take that away from someone you really care about and be like, yeah, fuck you. Sorry. You may never get this chance again, but I'm taking it right now. But because they've both already won one, I think it was a little bit more friendly, and of course they're going to be close no matter what. But I just think about how difficult that would be. Like if my brother and I found ourselves in that situation, I would be devastated. Like just taking that opportunity away from your brother, that would be just god awful.
Yeah,
and they both played amazing. I mean that formation that I forget what they call it, that the Eagles run, like where they
flying D or whatever.
Yeah, it's basically just a rugby scrum.
Yeah,
but Kelce's leading that charge, or Jason, and then Travis. He obviously had a hell of a game, even with the limited possessions that the Chiefs had, because I don't think people realize how little the Chiefs actually had the ball. Like, they ran 20 less plays than the Eagles did this whole game. And Travis Kelce goes 6 receptions, 81 yards, and a touchdown. And he got that touchdown in the first drive, but he just kept it going, just very consistent. And I think it's such a cool story because it's not only that they're brothers. Like, you could have a brother on one side, but maybe he plays sparingly, but like literally they are like the top of their positions. And I know it was beat to death over Super Bowl weeks, but like it's really is super cool. And I totally agree with the sentiment of like losing to a family member. I have a lot of like friends, some really good friends, family members that are Eagles fans. And I'm like, damn, like, I was thinking it through the week. I was like, I'd be really happy for them because it's also like euphoric situation. But I was like, I want that for me too. So it's like a struggle. It's like, I want you to be happy, but I also want to be happy. So do I want to be sad and you be happy? Which one's going to work? But I think it's a fitting way to end that game to say, fuck you. Congratulations. Go celebrate with your team is what he kept telling them. Go celebrate with your team. Get out of here. Like, get away from me.
Yeah. And you're happy for him, right? You're happy for Travis. Unfortunately, it sounds like Jason is probably done. He will probably retire. He has not announced it yet, but it's probably coming. He's had a hell of a career, will be a Hall of Fame candidate for sure. And there's a good argument for him to be a first ballot Hall of Fame center. So,
which is crazy because he walked on to
Walked on.
Cincinnati
yeah,
and just worked his way up. Like, just what a beast. And that guy is one of the most likable people in the NFL. He's just so
hell of a
awesome.
beard.
And he's got an awesome beard. And I always love how he shows up to press conferences wearing gym shorts and t-shirts. Like, he doesn't do the Cam Newton bullshit where you try and show off for the cameras. He's like, this is me, take it or leave it. I fucking love it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think even being a Chiefs fan, he's still probably like the Kelsey I'd probably most hang out with, because he just seems like just such a down to earth, cool dude. As much as I love Travis, totally in a different era, era of life that we're in. Dude's got kids. He's rocking it. That crying at the end with him hugging his mom didn't look like he was going to play again. That looked like this was it. And the fact that he stood there and watched the post-game celebration didn't feel like, hey, I'm gearing up for next year. It was more kind of like, this is it for me. Let me see my brother out the door, and I'm gonna hang him up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which, it gives you the chills a little bit thinking about like that, just that moment, and for him and watching it and being like, damn, like it almost hurts you a little bit. But for you guys being Chiefs fans, you're very obviously feeling probably a different kind of way. Let's pivot the conversation for a moment. Let's talk about the halftime show.
Oh God.
Let's talk about Riri. What do we think?
Let's rate it. Let's rate it.
Okay, let's rate it. Scotty, give us letter grade. Plus, minus.
Letter grade.
Go.
I'd give it a D+.
Okay. Alan?
C-.
Okay, I'll go solid C.
I will say that even pregnant, Rihanna is one of the hottest women that has ever lived. So I enjoyed that aspect of it, that we just got to watch her kind of prance around. But the show itself was terrible. I think in part due to the fact that she was like, okay, I'm really revealing a pregnancy here. That's going to have an impact. So I don't have to do a lot else. Wait, why?
Because you can't. Here's the thing. You're not allowed to go on social media and say that the halftime show sucked.
Oh, well,
you're not, because when you do, people come out of the woodworks. I think people have it like set on their phone for notifications. So as soon as someone says anything bad about it, a swarm of people just jump on them and they're like, you're fucking wrong. And it's no, I agree with you, but we're going to get canceled.
I'm also predisposed to dislike it because I don't like this kind of performance. Like, I would like it so much better. Like, Chris Stapleton killed the national anthem. Incredible. If they put him on a stage and just have him with a acoustic guitar and just play for 30 minutes, just play your songs like an actual concert, I would love that. But instead they have all this flash and stupid shit and like 40 dancers dressed like sperm. It was just very, very weird. And the platform thing, putting a pregnant woman 40 feet in the air, that made me nervous. I wasn't a big fan of the whole shindig.
No, I agree with that. That made me really nervous. I was like, I don't like this. I didn't like the platforms. You could actually, in like the ones that had the platforms that had the two people on them, you could see them like moving a little bit. And I was like, this is awful. Like, I would hate to, like, I would never, if I was Rihanna, I would never want to put somebody up there and be responsible for if they fell off. Like, that is so bad. They all look like a bunch of marshmallows. Like, it's like a bunch of Michelin men running around when they're all dressed in white. It was terrible. I would have the only thing that would have done this for me, Tom Holland comes in and does Umbrella like he does for the Comedy Central thing. I would have loved that. That would have made.
I would have watched that a little bit more intently, I think. I know my wife in the middle of all of that said, is she just going to do like a gender reveal at the very end? Like, what is this going to turn into? And so we were having jokes like somebody going to come out and do an ultrasound at the end, and we're going to find the baby live on the
ultrasound
Jumbotron.
on the Jumbotron. Yeah. I thought she might just give birth right in the middle of it. And then the baby was going to come out wearing a red jumpsuit dancing.
I think objectively, her music collection is solid.
Very.
Like, I was just remembering how many good songs she had. That's all I was doing. Like, somebody could have just sat at midfield with like their phone, just flipping through Spotify and just playing her songs. I'd be like, oh, this is a sick collection. The performance itself did like nothing for me, other than me trying to decide if she was pregnant for the first like 5 minutes.
Yeah, and we also watched it in a room full of screaming children, so that took away from a little bit of it. But still, I mean, I think when you're watching it, the other thing that always gets me is these halftime shows with these like pop stars and rap artists. Like, I feel like they forget sometimes that their audience consists of like 8-year-old kids. And it just makes me uncomfortable. Like, in our situation, we're at a Super Bowl party, a lot of parents, there are a lot of kids there, and all these kids are just watching Rihanna air hump all these sperm. And it was just very uncomfortable. I'm like, can you at least perform in such a way that you don't feel like you have to shade your kids' eyes while they watch it? Like, it just seems
you just want John
short-sighted.
Cougar Mellencamp to get up there and play a couple ballads.
I really just think an acoustic performance would be awesome.
Chris
Of a really good
Stapleton
singer.
did a great job singing.
Even Rihanna, if she just did an acoustic performance, she has a great voice. If she just got up there and sang, it would be way better.
I wish there was another person that came on. Like it felt very like, okay, when is the guest gonna come in? When is this gonna get crazy? What's going on? And it never came, and I was very disappointed in that.
Well, they played 2 of her songs in a row that featured Kanye, and I thought, oh man, they're about to break the internet, bring
First
Kanye
off,
out.
Scotty, his name is Yee now.
Yeah,
so
or
get it
Ye.
right.
It's Yay, but
Yay.
Yay. But either
Yeah, it
way,
is
I think
Ye.
that would have been at least hilarious to do
I'm
that.
canceled.
You know, bring him out and he's canceled pretty much, and just send it.
Yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll ever get on that big of a stage ever again, just given the fact that all the crap he's done. But yeah, it wasn't too great. Let's talk about the ads, the commercials. Did you guys have any that stand out to you as like the best one?
The best one I thought was the one that made everyone think someone was changing the channel.
The Tubi.
Yeah, the Tubi one. I thought that one was pretty genius.
was
The other one that stands out to me is the one with John Travolta, where he came out
Yeah,
and was singing
Yes.
with the guys from whatever that hospital
Scrubs.
show was. Yeah, Scrubs. Yeah, I thought that one was like a very simple commercial that was really well done and kept your attention. So both of those stood out to me. I didn't think any of them were particularly great, but again, I missed a lot of them just because of the environment we were in. But those ones do stand out.
I did like the John Travolta one. The Scrub, I was like, this is good. This is a good one. The Tubi one got everybody. I don't know if it got you guys. It got us upstairs. You know, I was watching it with my family, and my mom turns to my dad, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And he looks at her like, "What the hell are you yelling at me for?" And then we realize it's commercial, and there's videos. It's like going viral. What a very creative like commercial. Like you could not get better than that.
Well, I got to give credit to Alan, because I think he's the only one in the room that realized it was a commercial, because everyone else, like, nobody yelled, but everyone was kind of just looking around like, what the fuck is going
Who's
on?
got their remote?
And Alan's like, it's a commercial, everybody. It's a commercial. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, I never even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Is there any
good.
any to stand out for you, Alan?
It's the same exact too. And
Okay.
like, I don't know, like the ads themselves have just gone like, I feel like downhill over the last, I don't know, 10 years. That used to be like the thing. Like
Yeah.
you were locked into the Super Bowl commercial to the end. Like it didn't matter. You were watching everything. And I felt like a lot of those commercials, I was just like, okay, all right. You know, like, oh, I know what this is. And there's like a, Dorito or some shit. And I'm like, all right, I don't care. Like none of this is funny. But like those two are like memorable. The Tubi one, just because everybody got freaking juked right out of their seat. And then, yeah, the John Travolta one was top notch. Mainly my wife, loves John Travolta. So that was fun for
Who
her.
doesn't?
And she loves Zach
He's a
Braff
good
from
looking
Scrubs.
dude, man.
He
I was
honestly,
like, damn.
his voice doesn't fit how badass he looks. Like, he with a bald head and the beard, and
Yeah.
he's already just kind of bulky. Like, he looks like the kind of guy who would kill your whole family. And then he sings songs. It's just very weird. I was thinking about this while the Tubi commercial was going on. Do you think, like, if somebody was watching for it, do you think you could detect on like a seismograph when that commercial happened? Because everybody in the country had to have been like, "Whoop," like all at the exact same time. Like, do you think you might be able to detect that?
Everybody knew where their remote was in those 2 seconds of that commercial. Like if you didn't, or like, because once you set the commercial, like once you set the Super Bowl on, you're not touching that remote for a very long time. And I think everybody, that was a good chance to reset and make sure you had control over the remote. So it was like also like a public service thing, because you're like, fuck, you haven't seen that in a few hours.
It
There
was the
is.
time where everyone realized who the dominant one was in the room,
Because
that
everyone just looked their direction.
That person's like, what the fuck is going on? What are you doing with my remote?
I will say, I won't say never, but like, I'm not planning on getting Tubi. It did nothing for me, but I think they won the Super Bowl ads. There was one that I really did enjoy. It was the Ram, the pure electrification, where it was, no, you guys didn't catch
Is that the
one?
Will Ferrell one?
No, the Will Ferrell one wasn't terrible.
It was
But
okay.
It was the one where it was premature electrification, and they were just a bunch of like you guys didn't see that one? Oh my
I don't know
gosh.
that I
no.
did.
It might be my favorite. It was hilarious. It was a bunch of women and men, like couples sitting there, and women are just talking about premature electrification. And it's like, I wish we just had I wish we would have lasted a little bit longer. And like the guys just sitting there looking
Okay.
sad. It's hilarious.
Okay, I'll have to watch this. I was just Googling and I typed in premature and then typed E, and I didn't get the commercial to start. I'll tell you that much right now.
Ah,
No commercial.
So the question now is, what are you gonna watch when we get off this episode?
I don't
Go
know.
check
You
it
know,
out.
I'm
it
getting
couldn't
older.
hurt.
I'm getting
Couldn't
older.
hurt to get some advice.
Yeah.
I feel you. Yeah, I would suggest going to check that out. It was pretty funny. Okay, so commercials aside, this felt like a commercial. I don't know if you guys had the opportunity. It was so quick. It was the kick of destiny.
Mhm.
That was the biggest crock of I was so pissed off. I was
Yeah,
like,
they really blew that one.
He
so
made
bad.
it though. It looked like he made it.
It did
It
look
looked
like he
like-
made it.
Yeah, and then they said he didn't make it. They, dude, somebody.
We have controversy in our commercials.
It's
can't get away from it.
ridiculous. I thought he was going to do that live at the Super Bowl. Like maybe
what
at the beginning of the third quarter before the teams come out, he was going to kick it or something. What a crock of shit. That wasn't live. So whoever at FanDuel's like, you know what we'll do? We'll put like the little red dot in the flashing
Yeah.
live and we'll call it live.
Yeah.
I was so fucking pissed.
You should
I
sue
was
him.
like,
That's false
this-
advertising.
That is false
Yeah.
advertising. We should 100% sue him.
They're trying to juke us like 90s recordings where it's like, we'll put the date in the bottom corner and we'll say recording. That'll get everyone. Nobody will
Oh.
see it coming.
Yeah, it was disappointing because I had a lot of hype going into it where everyone's
did.
like, "Oh, this is kind of funny, kind of cool," and then he missed, and instead of like, it would have been at least hilarious if they all just gave him a copious amount of shit and were like, "Wow, you fucking suck! I can't believe you just missed that." But instead, they're like, "Oh, you still win," and then they all hugged.
Stupid.
It was
Stupid.
terrible.
Yeah, and it was a commercial. That's what it was. Like it was a pre-recorded commercial that they
Yeah.
just threw on there, and I'm like, this was your quote unquote kick of destiny. Like there was quite a bit of hype going into this. I expected way more. Fuck you, FanDuel. You're terrible. You false advertise, and you guys are pieces of shit.
Well, and not only that, but everything with Gronk besides a football team is garbage. He's just terrible in everything.
Well, okay, here because I thought the same thing, and then I listened to the New Heights episode where Gronk was on it. That's the Kelsey podcast, and I listened to it, and it gave me somewhat of a new perspective on Gronk because I thought the same thing, and I'm like, Gronk he's terrible. He is unintelligent, and I listened to him on this podcast, and I was like, oh my gosh, like he isn't necessarily what I think like the media tries to portray him as all the time. He actually is sometimes kind of smart, at least in this interview he was. But the majority of the things that I see him, like the USAA commercials, I cringe every time those come on because I'm like, oh my, the acting is terrible. It's cringy.
I think they go for the cringe on those.
Oh,
but
he's leaning into it. Him and his publicist, his marketing team, they know what this angle is for him. They don't want him to be another stuffy, like, let me pretend to be professional guy that you see on every other Sunday morning. Like they want him to be the goofy, I'm wild, and this is what I do.
He's still
I
a
think it's all
better.
very calculated.
He's still a better actor than The Rock, so he's got that going for him at least.
Have you
What
seen
about
those Fast
Vin
and the
Diesel?
Furious movies?
Yeah. Did you see the trailer for the new one? Looked insane.
Yeah,
Get hyped.
I'm not talking.
Get
about
hyped.
This.
Get hyped, Matt.
This is
Come
what's
on.
called a by the book lose situation for me. So I'm opting out.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought it looked cool.
Is
Gross.
it because he was in WWE before he became a huge movie star?
Well, that
Be
doesn't
honest.
surprise me. That's not why I hate him, but that doesn't surprise me because the acting level is on par.
Here's something you can do if you don't like him is that
Kill myself.
no
Sounds like you don't like family. That's what I'm hearing. You're not a big
No.
family guy.
No, The Rock. You can, remember Nebraska beat him in a national title game, so you can always like hang your hat on that.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me either. I'm surprised he's good at anything. I watch him on TV. He's definitely on steroids too. Joe Rogan called him out
Oh.
on that.
There's no way he's not
Oh.
on steroids. He could
Yeah.
beat all of our asses.
Well, he was on steroids. I think if he stopped taking steroids, he would just shrivel up,
Just like a deflated
a
balloon.
shell of his former self.
You'd just be like,
This is getting
The,
out
pe-
of
the-
control.
the people just listening really missed out
What-
on that.
what an
that
episode.
expression.
what an episode.
Oh shit. Okay, let's go back to some football conversation here. So the Eagles finished with 115 yards rushing. If you take Hurts out of this equation, the team totaled 45 yards in rushing. The reason I bring this up is because back in the first half, they really did not rush the ball as much as you would expect for them to have ball control throughout. Like the amount of ball control that they had in the first half. Granted, they fumbled, caused a go-ahead touchdown a fumble recovery for a touchdown for the defense, for the Chiefs. So then the Eagles offense comes back out on the field. So that, that alludes to some of the time there. But overall, they played a lot of ball control. You saw a lot of 3rd and 4th down conversions on this team and through the air. Their run game wasn't great. Hurts was absolutely incredible. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown totaled nearly 200 yards receiving between the both of them. There's 2 big plays that stand out in my mind. One was the A.J. Brown touchdown, which was a great touchdown. Great throw. He beat the defense. And then the second one was Devontae Smith, the catch that went out of bounds right before the touchdown. Was that the play that you wanted to talk on, Scotty?
Well, it's not that I wanted to talk about it. It's one of the things that I offer up as a controversial call to counteract all the people talking about the controversial holding call. Like the Eagles, granted, we watched the replay. I think it could go either way. So I don't necessarily blame them for calling it a catch.
I just want to clarify. Are you talking about the Bradbury call or the Smith catch?
I'm talking about the Smith catch.
Okay.
So I think it could go either way. I wasn't freaking out in my chair that they called it a catch, but it's just one of many calls that could have gone either way. Should they have called this a catch? Should they have called it an incompletion? Should they have called it a hold? Should they have let it go? The Eagles had a few of them as well, and I think that was one of them where you could have easily seen that being called incomplete.
Or the fumble, they took 7 off the board for the Chiefs where he caught it, turned, had possession, had 2 steps, and then got hit and lost it, which I said in the moment that probably should be incomplete. But
yeah, both you and I said that right there.
But if you look at the NFL, you go to the Goddard catch where he catches it, bobbles it, re-catches it, and then goes right out of bounds. There's not really consistency because there's the 2 plays that happen on the football field. Now, one just happened to stay in the open space. The other one went out of bounds. And it's but they're the same similar things. Nobody really made a football move after it, but one's a catch, one's not. And you're like, okay, so how often? And I agree by the letter of the law, those plays work, but I think that's just what creates so much controversy because then you have everybody saying, well, what's a catch? What's not? That's a conspiracy. They want this team to win. No, they want this team to win. And it's I don't think the Chiefs, if the Chiefs would have lost this game, there would be that much outrage over them, any of those calls that the Chiefs got called against them, which I think they have some gripes there. But I think it just lends credence to where the money was. A lot of people wanted the Eagles to win. So you see a lot of outrage for when it was kind of things didn't shake their way on some.
Well, and not only that, the Chiefs have been so good now for 5 years that you're developing a real anti-fan base. And so people are going to pay attention to those calls that go in favor of the Chiefs more so than their opponents. So I do think that plays a little bit of a part in it where you have several controversial calls that took place, but we only talk about the one that does not benefit the Chiefs. And that's been standard for the last several years.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think there might be a little bit of bias in that.
Yeah, there probably is.
I think there might be. But I think we have to talk about the Bradbury call because as somebody who is bipartisan in all of this, you were both Chiefs fans. I'm going to give my take on it. Do I think it was holding? Yes. James Bradbury. So if you were one of the 10 people that live under a rock and did not watch the Super Bowl, he held Juju Smith-Schuster. And he came out at the end of the game and he said, yeah, that was a hold. And I was hoping they would let me get away with it. I don't think it should have been called. That's my opinion. Do I think it was a hold? Yes. Do I think it was an egregious hold? No. And I think that more often than not, if we were to pull up tape and look at it, we could probably get a flag for every single play. I think that's
almost every player.
On almost every play. That is the world that we live in the NFL. You can nitpick and you can choose. You could get a holding penalty for a lot of different offensive linemen at any time that you want, but how egregious is it? And that's where you would probably see a flag. Do I think it was egregious enough to get a flag? I don't. I also don't think that ball was catchable anyway. Do I think it changes the outcome of the game? I don't. I think the Chiefs still win this game. But what I would have liked to see is that call not get played. The Chiefs would kick a field goal. Eagles got 2 minutes. Let's see what happens. If you're a Chiefs fan, I don't think you want that call either, because no matter what, now the narrative is always going to be the refs won you this game.
Yeah, but the difference is that I don't give a shit what the narrative is, because people choose to focus on one single play like that, when in reality you look back. It's the same thing that happened with the Bengals game. You look back at the stats, and the Chiefs in the second half of this game played a perfect game. Patrick Mahomes came back from a 10-point deficit through one incompletion, which was an intentional incompletion where he threw the ball away. Outside of that, they never turned the ball over. They scored on every possession. They played a perfect game. The Eagles had a million opportunities to flip the script here, and they failed to do it. So you can sit there and point at one play, but when you do that, you're demonstrating your own bias, because you're saying, "Oh, if this play didn't happen, the whole game would have been different." But you could point to every single play throughout the entire game and say that same thing. And so it's to me, I don't care about the naysayers, especially because the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. It doesn't bother me one bit. But this is consistent with the same thing I said after the Bengals game. You can call these penalties on any given play. So if you want to sit there and bitch and moan about all the calls that were made or weren't made, then you can ruin your own life doing that. Otherwise, you just take a step back and recognize these NFL referees are human beings. They have a split second to make a decision. Say that hold ended up impacting the route, and then he doesn't get to the ball on what would have been a touchdown, and they don't call the penalty. Then at that point, he also impacts the game going the other way, and he has to make that in a fraction of a second. And so
here's where I'm going to argue with you, because, and I'm curious, and we won't know this. None of us will ever know this. They didn't throw the flag until Patrick Mahomes was screaming and yelling that there should be a flag there.
That's not true.
It looked like it. The ref that threw the flag was behind Patrick Mahomes.
He didn't throw it.
Did he not?
He did not. No, Carl Cheffers didn't throw that flag. That came from the secondary. This guy watching those two wide receivers in the secondary threw it. And that's what Pat was pointing to, was the flag being thrown, saying there's a hold, there's a hold. So like some of the videos misconstruing like how the events played out, like that guy saw it. I will say, even as a Chiefs fan, it's just like anything else. They weren't calling it all game. And so the players are kind of playing that way all game. And now at the very end, now you want to call it. I could understand why that would be a little bit sideways, because then you're like, we weren't playing by this same set of like rules early on. Like there were like pass interference and people being held earlier that maybe should have been called, that were maybe a little bit higher up on the list. So I do understand from a Philly fan perspective why that might seem like a very crucial moment. But what also could have happened was maybe you could have not let the Chiefs score on every possession that they got in the second half. Maybe you could have scored more than 11 points in the second half with your ball control. Maybe you could have not given up 6.4 yards per play to the Chiefs with this top defense that you had. There were a lot of other issues, I think, that played into it that makes the rest of the game seem very disingenuous. Like it's disingenuous to the whole thing, because now you're saying like both sides' efforts were completely out the door. It's just this one play that ruined it for everything. And you're like, listen, it's easier as a fan to throw it on that because it absolves your team of anything negative. Because you can say, we played hard, but we just got hosed. No, your team kind of played like shit in the second half. You were only the second team in Super Bowl history to blow a double-digit lead after halftime. The other one being the Falcons, which gets memed to death over and over again. And if you look at some particular stats in this game, let me read a couple. Isaiah Pacheco averages 5.1 yards per carry. Mahomes, 7.3. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. McKinnon, 8.3. Hurts, 4.7. Gainwell, 3 yards a carry. Miles Sanders, 2 yards a carry. Like there were some very blatant things that happened in this game that should be talked about before we talk about that holding call.
Well, okay. Nick Sirianni definitely agrees with you. He came out and said it at the end of the game. He said that the game was not determined on this play. We had so many other opportunities. I'm not going to argue that at all.
And that's a big baller move, by the way. So you got to give credit to that on that one.
There's a lot of people who are saying Nick Sirianni's doing it for publicity. I could not disagree more. I think that it's the truth. And if you are a head coach and you have the self-awareness enough to know that we had an opportunity to win this game and we blew it like the Eagles did, you come out and you state that.
Mm-hmm.
Why hide behind James Bradbury and throw your player under the bus for a mistake that was made?
That's what it is.
Well, and not only that too, a lot of people are giving Nick Sirianni some shit because he was doing that waving thing during the penalty, whatever, where he was basically taunting. But I think that when I look at a coach that does something like that, people are saying, "Oh, he's being immature. He's whatever." I see a coach that's perfectly suited for the Philly fan base. They want a guy out there who's going to be talking shit, who's going to be active on the sideline, who's going to be screaming when good things happen, who's going to be slamming his headset when bad things happen. That's not the coach that I want. I like the Andy Reid stoicism, but I appreciate that. And I think that that is a form of coaching where he's getting into it with the players. He's in the trenches with the players. He's talking shit. He's doing everything. And I think Nick Sirianni did a great job for that organization, very obviously making it to the Super Bowl. And I think he fits really, really well there. So I got nothing but praise for the guy.
Okay. Isaiah Pacheco. Clyde Edwards-Helaire did not suit up for this game. He was injured.
He's gone.
He's gone.
He's gone.
Okay. I tend to agree with you guys. Do you think it's Isaiah Pacheco's, it's his backfield now?
Should be. I think they're always going to have a rotation just because that's the way Andy Reid likes to do things. But I think Isaiah Pacheco is going to be the primary go-to guy for the ground game. I think he demonstrated in this game in particular. You know, McKinnon got a lot of attention throughout the season because of all of his red zone touchdowns. But I think they showed, hey, when we need a few hard yards, this is our go-to guy. And I think he fills that role really well. He's bought in 100%, and I think all of Chiefs Kingdom is bought into him as well.
What about Melvin Gordon? You don't like him going forward?
I stated in the offseason that I think Melvin Gordon, when he was playing for the Broncos, is still a great running back. The injury derailed the season, but he's still a great running back. I think he's a very good ancillary piece to have. I would much rather have him on the field than Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I think that is a fair statement, and I agree with that.
I think so. I was reading some just some like pre-draft stuff, kind of getting ready for like where teams might go or where they might look. And one of the things I saw for the Chiefs was like, I think everybody thinks they're going to go wide receiver pretty early, which I think is safe to say. But I think they have some running backs in the draft that they also like, that they might pull in to like try to solidify like how they want to play. Like, and I know McKinnon's there, but I know they're always kind of like looking to reload and move on. And so I'm really interested to see what they do from a cap perspective. Even like from a fantasy perspective, I think it's will be really interesting to see where Pacheco goes next year, like where people kind of want to draft him, because I think there's a lot of upside there, but it'll really depend on who the Chiefs draft and what decisions they make, because they do like their rotation.
Even if this exact same team comes back, it's still, from a fantasy perspective, difficult to trust Pacheco because of how pass heavy this offense is. They want the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands. And because Andy Reid always has a rotation, they're never going to have a bell cow. So I think even if the offense stays exactly as it is now, Pacheco is still going to be someone who's going to be a mid to late rounder that you just kind of hope has some consistency down the line. I'm not someone who's going to be real excited about drafting him.
It'll be interesting to see. I know Dynasty, those who own Pacheco, such as myself, are trying to figure out where his value is, and it's all over the board. And I think it really depends on who your league mates are, who owns him, and what you can sell him for. But very difficult to try and figure out. I love him as a runner, though. He looks electric. He looked electric last night, and he looks pretty good down the stretch there. That's it. I don't really have anything else here to cover. I think we've done a pretty good job talking about everything in the Super Bowl. Is there anything else that you guys would like to discuss before we get the heck out of here?
I think we've been pretty fair. I think we should pat ourselves on the back for being Chiefs fans. I think we're pretty fair. We gave credit where credit's due.
I think Alan was a little bit more fair.
That's typical. Hunter's got a bias against me, so it counteracts.
No. I was just talking about the Bradbury call. I think that it was mostly fair. It was mostly fair.
I think it was a great game.
I think no matter what, you will side with the Chiefs no matter what the calls are. So if it's against the Chiefs, you're going to hate it, and if it's for the Chiefs, you're going to be for it. As somebody who's I just don't think it should have been called.
And here's the thing too, in a vacuum, if I put myself in that referee's position, I also probably wouldn't have called it. So I don't disagree with you there, but I also think it's important for us to take a step back and recognize, okay, just because he did throw the flag doesn't mean it was wrong, because by the book, it was a holding call, and he has to make that decision on whether or not it's going to impact the play like that. We can go back and play Monday morning quarterback or Monday morning referee and say, oh, well, it didn't even impact the play. Why would you throw that at that time? But it just as as easily could have been the difference maker that kept the Chiefs from scoring a touchdown. And you don't know that when he releases off the route. It all happens so fast. So I just have a hard time blaming the ref in that particular instance. There are a lot of calls throughout the seasons for and against the Chiefs that are egregiously bad, and refs should be criticized for those things. I don't think this is one of those calls.
Yeah. I think it's just more upsetting that became the talk rather than the two quarterbacks that played absolutely out of their minds, being the top two, MVP candidates in the NFL, and they just played so well. I think I'm excited for Jalen Hurts and this Eagle team moving forward. They have some decisions to make. And so I think the one takeaway for me is like, can they continue to play this way while they restructure their team? Like, will this work moving forward, or is he going to have to maybe evolve a little bit in how he spreads the ball around or what plays they're going to be calling, etc. But I think it was a great game. I think it was a great season. Unreal. I did not expect the Chiefs to be in this situation. I think the Eagles all year kind of showed it. I think if you're a Bengals or Bills fan, you're kind of like, shit, he got another one, and we're looking at that point in the AFC where it's like, it's going to be that run of Tom Brady where it's either Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl or it's the team that beat Pat Mahomes is in the Super Bowl. I think that's just how it's going to be for the next few years. But,
and I said at the beginning, but I wholeheartedly, I believe, and this really has solidified it for me. You can never discount them, because I did. I was somebody who did discount them in the offseason. They lost Tyreek Hill. What is this team going to look like? They're going to spread the ball around to everybody. They're not going to be as effective. Their offense is not going to be nearly as explosive. They're not going to get it done. As long as 15's back there, you're always in the game.
So here's an interesting question, just moving into next season. The Chiefs have, I don't remember what number they're at, but they have a ridiculous amount of cap space. So obviously we know, they want to target some wide receivers and such in the draft. I think they're going to want to bolster their defense. Do you think there are going to be any big free agent names that come over to the Chiefs in the offseason that they're willing to shell out some money for in order to bolster up their wide receiver rooms and their defensive core?
The problem being there's not a lot of big name wide receivers that are free agents right now. And that's the biggest question at hand. I mean, Juju is a free agent. Mecole Hardman is a free agent. And those are both on your team. Those are kind of bigger name wide receivers. You have like Sammy Watkins, Julio Jones, DJ Shark. Michael Thomas is a free agent that I as a Chiefs fan, you shouldn't want him. You just have Jarvis Landry. I mean, there's no big name wide receivers that are currently free agents. So unless the Chiefs are willing to give up some picks, and I don't see them doing that, I think it's going to be wide receivers. I think you are going to draft some wide receivers. You're going to Sky Moore, you're hoping is going to take a jump. And you're going to play with what you got because you did it last year and it worked. You still have MVS. So that's what I see happening. I see the Chiefs reloading in the draft and at the wide receiver position, just focally based on team need.
Yep. I agree, man.
So, we'll see. We'll see. This offseason is going to be great. It's going to be super fun. We are taking a vacation. So for all of you who tune in to Leather Brains on a weekly basis, we appreciate it. But we need a break.
Love you.
We do love you guys, but we need a break. So we are going on vacation. We will resume our episodes March 1st. So not only that, but March Gladness will be starting. So if you guys were not around for last year's March Gladness, we are doing signed jersey giveaways every single week. So there'll be more information coming down the ladder on that, but we are going on vacation. We will be back for off-season conversation and, more importantly, fantasy football conversation. So we kind of strayed away from that just because it is the postseason. There's still football on. We want to talk about football, but football's all year round, baby. So we will be talking about fantasy football March 1st. We will be back in the building for season 2.
Let's get it.
Damn straight.
It's
going to be awesome. Well, and on top of that, too, just to add on, I'm going to do my best to put out some written content in the meantime. So if you're really missing out on Leather Brains, we'll put some stuff together for you. So make sure you go subscribe to our Substack. You can find the links on all of our social media platforms. Get sent right to your email, and that way you can keep up with us while we are not recording for the next 2 weeks.
Yes, sir. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Let's get the hell out of here. We
are
out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leather Brains. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing and leaving a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast app and YouTube. as well as following us at Leatherbrains on Twitter and Instagram. If you're looking for specific fantasy advice, including draft advice, trade insight, starts and sits, or even if you want our thoughts on your sports bets, please feel free to send us a DM on Twitter for an answer and a chance to have your question featured on a future episode. Again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back before you know it.